Notice for account review. The risk-based pricing notice required for account review must include A. A statement that the consumer report includes information about the consumer's credit history. B. A statement that the consumer has conducted a review of the account during the consumer credit history. C. A statement that as a result the consumer's APR has been increased. D. A statement that the consumer has a right to waive the accuracy of the consumer report and to dispute any incorrect information. E. The identity of each consumer reporting agency that furnished a report used for the credit decision. F. A statement that federal law gives the consumer the right to request a statement or a copy of the consumer report without charge for 60 days after receiving the notice. G. A statement that instructs the consumer how to obtain a consumer report from the consumer reporting agency identified in the notice. H. A statement directing the consumer to the FTC and Federal Reserve Board website to obtain more information about consumer reports. I. A statement informing the consumer how to obtain a consumer report from the agencies identified in the notice and including contact information, including the toll-free number where applicable. J. A statement directing consumers to the website of the Federal Reserve and the Federal Trade Commission to obtain more information about consumer reports. And K. If the credit score of the consumer was used in increasing the APR, then include the following. 1. A statement that a credit score, a number that takes into account information in the consumer report, that the credit score was used to set the terms of offered credit, and that a credit score can change over time to reflect changes in the consumer credit history. Credit score used by the person making the credit decision. The range of possible credit scores and the model used to generate the credit score. For all of the key factors that adversely affected the credit score, not to exceed 4 factors, unless 1 is the number of inquiries made with respect to the report, then the number of key factors may not exceed 5, and 5 the day that the credit report was created, and 6 the name of the consumer reporting agency that provided the credit score. Form of the notice must be clear and conspicuous, provided to the consumer in oral, written, and electronic form. Page 116. Model forms. Use of model forms found in the regulation. Use of the model forms found in the regulation is deemed to be in compliance with the requirement. Timing. Closing credit. For closing credit, risk-based pricing notices must be provided to consumers before consummation, but not prior to giving notice that consumer's application has been approved. Open-end credit. For open-end credit, the notice must be provided before the first transaction is made, but not earlier than the time the credit decision is communicated to the consumer. And 3. Review of accounts. C. Review of accounts. In the case of reviewing an account, the notice must be given at the time the decision is made to raise the APR on the account, or in the case of a credit card, within 5 days of changing the rate. Automobile loans. In the case of indirect automobile loans, the notice may be provided to the lender or the dealer as long as the lender maintains a method for ensuring that the dealer actually provides proper notice at that appropriate time. Contemporaneous purchases. When is granted under an open-end credit for the purpose of financing a contemporaneous purchase, any risk-based pricing notice required to be given may be given either at the time of the first mailing to the consumer after the purchase or within 30 days of the purchase. Multiple credit scores. When a creditor bans more than one credit score of a consumer and uses one of them in setting material credit terms, risk-based credit notices must include the information on the credit score that was used. B. If multiple credit scores are used by averaging, etc., the risk-based pricing notice must include information on one of them, and at the creditor's option may include information on more than one. 12. Multiple consumers. In a transaction involving multiple consumers, a notice must be provided to each. If a credit score is used for each consumer, each must receive credit and receive a notice even if both have the same address. The notice to a consumer must include only the information on the consumer's credit score. Exceptions to the notice requirement. If application for specific terms. When a applicant applies for specific terms and is granted credit on those terms, no notice is required. Specific terms must not include a range of alternatives. Adverse action. The lender is not required to give a risk-based pricing notice to a consumer to whom it provides an adverse action notice. That's what I couldn't get straight. I always thought that they were talking about credit score notices. No. It's interchangeable with an adverse action notice in risk-based pricing notice. Yeah. Pre-screen solicitation. No risk-based pricing notice is required if the lender obtains a consumer report in a pre-screen list and uses it to extend a firm offer of credit to the consumer. This applies even if the lender makes offers to other consumers on more favorable terms. Credit score disclosures. Residential real estate loans. A lender is not required to provide a risk-based pricing notice if the extension of credit is secured by a 1 to 4 family residence. Then it must use a credit score disclosure. Alright, so it's one or the other. It's not interchangeable. Two different purposes. Anyway. A lender is not required to provide a risk-based pricing notice if the extension of credit is secured by a 1 to 4 family residence. The lender provides a notice that includes the following. A. A statement that a consumer report includes information about a consumer's credit history. B. A statement that a credit score is a number that takes into account the consumer's credit history and can change over time. C. A statement that the consumer's credit score can determine whether the consumer can obtain credit and the terms that are offered. D. The information required by Section 609G of the FCRA, including the credit score obtained or developed in connection with the application. 2. The key factors supplied by the Consumer Reporting Agency. And 3. A copy of notice to the home loan applicant as set forth in the FCRA. E. A bar graph, and this is contents of the credit score disclosure. E is a bar graph illustrating the distribution of credit scores among consumers who are scored using the same scoring model as the one generated by consumers' credit score. Must be a minimum of 6 bars on the graph, or by using another graphical means or clearly understandable format. Understandable statement showing how the consumer's credit score compares to others. A statement that the consumer has the right to verify the accuracy of the consumer report and to dispute any inaccurate information. And G, a statement that federal law gives the consumer the right to request a copy of the consumer report without changes annually and contact information from a centralized source to request this information. Lastly, a statement directing the consumer to the FTC or Fed websites to obtain more information about the consumer report. The notice, and this is the credit score disclosure, the notice must be clear, conspicuous, provided with the FCRA notice information, segregated from other information required to be disclosed to the consumer, and except for information disclosed under 609G of the FCRA. Provided in writing and in a form the consumer can disclose another reading. Notice has to be. Timing. The notice must be provided before consummation for the closed-in credit and prior to the first transaction in case there is no credit. Multiple credit scores. When a creditor obtains multiple credit scores and either uses one of those scores, that score must be disclosed. When a creditor obtains multiple credit scores and uses a computed score such as an average or median score, the creditor must disclose one of those scores. A model form is available for use for this disclosure. Proper use of this form affords the creditor a compliance safe harbor. Non-residential property loans. A lender is not required to provide risk-based pricing notices if a consumer requests an extension of credit to be secured by residential real estate. A statement that, the creditor provides a notice that includes the following. A statement that a consumer report includes information about the consumer's credit history. B, a statement that the credit score is a number that takes into account the consumer's credit history and can change over time. C, a statement that the consumer's credit score is important because consumers with high credit scores get more favorable credit terms. D, the consumer's current credit score. E, the range of possible credit scores under the model used to generate the credit score. F, a bar graph illustrating the distribution of credit scores among consumers who are scored using the same scoring model as the one that generated the consumer's credit score. Must be a minimum of 6 bars on the graph, or by using another graphical means or clearly understandable statement showing how the consumer's credit score compares to others. G, the date on which the credit score was created. H, the time of the consumer reporting agency or other person that provided the credit score. I, a statement that the consumer has the right to verify the accuracy of the consumer report and to dispute any inaccurate information. J, a statement that federal law gives the consumer the right to request a copy of the consumer report without charge annually and contact information from the centralized source to request this information. And K, a statement directing the consumer to the FTC and Fed websites to obtain more information about consumer report. This notice must be clear and conspicuous, segregated from other information required to be disclosed to the consumer, except for information disclosed under 609G of the fcra, and C, provided in writing and in a form the consumer can keep. Timing. The notice must be provided as soon as practicable after the credit score is obtained, but in any event prior to the consummation of closed-end credit or prior to the first transaction in open-end credit. Multiple credit scores. When a creditor obtains multiple credit scores and uses either one of those scores, that score must be disclosed. When a creditor obtains multiple credit scores and uses the computed score, such as an average or median score, the creditor must disclose one of the scores. A model form is available for use for this disclosure. Proper use of this form affords the consumer a compliance safe harbor. F, credit score not available. A lender is not required to provide a risk-based pricing notice if the person obtains credit scores from the consumer reporting agency, but one is not available for the consumer. 2, has not obtained a credit score from another consumer reporting agency in connection with the consumer credit report. 3, a statement that provides a notice that to the customer that includes the following. A, a statement that the consumer report includes information about the consumer's credit history. B, a statement that the credit score is a number that takes into account the consumer's credit history and can change over time. C, a statement that the consumer's credit score is important because consumers with high credit scores get more favorable credit terms. D, a statement that not having a credit score can either affect the there's a break from right here. No. Consumer's credit history can change over time. A statement that consumer's credit score is important because consumers with higher credit scores get more favorable credit terms. D, a statement that not having credit score can affect whether the consumer can get credit and the cost of credit. E, a statement that the consumer's credit score was not available from the consumer reporting agency, which must be identified as the same general rule to insufficient information on the consumer. F, a statement that the consumer has the right to verify the accuracy of the consumer report and to dispute any inaccurate information. G, a statement that federal law gives the consumer the right to annually contact information from a centralized source to request this information. And H, a statement directing the consumer to the FTC and Federal Reserve Board websites to obtain more information about consumer reports. This notice must be clear and conspicuous. I'm sure all the regular things segregated and in writing.